and welcome to episode 1, series 2 of In Suspense, a not quite so brand new, but still new to us, video podcast or vodcast for fans and writers of crime fiction. I'm Leslie Cara, and my co-host is Lauren North.
Hi.
Now, in our last series, we interviewed some fabulous guests. We spoke to S.J. Watson, Steve Watson, Karen Hamilton, Essie Lines, Tracy Buchanan, a whole host of really interesting writers, and talked about some really fascinating topics. And in our next series, this current one, we've got lots of guests lined up for you too. But if you've missed the ones that have come before, then, excuse me, they're still available on our YouTube channel and on all the normal sort of podcast platforms. So do catch up with those if you've missed them. And it seems really strange that I haven't been speaking to you for the past 5 or 6 weeks. Whenever we stopped doing it, Lauren, it was end of November, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it has been really strange. Yeah, I've really missed it. And I thought I'd have lots more time and I'd enjoy more time for writing. But actually, I just missed having the variety of doing something that was still connected to books and writing, but wasn't actually just sat at my desk by myself. So I've really missed it.
Yeah, and it's something to. I mean, I enjoy just sort of putting some makeup on and doing
Yeah, I did
something
my hair
different.
today for the first time in 6 weeks, probably.
Well, it looks lovely. So what have you been up to over December?
Oh,
What was your
well,
Christmas?
I finished my structural edits for book 3, and I got the golden email which said they've gone to copy edits, which is great because that took 3 rounds of structural edits, and that's the first time that I've ever had to do 3 rounds of structural edits. So it was really hard, and I was just so relieved when it was all done. So yeah, that's gone. I'm expecting that back now this month, I imagine. And what else have I been doing? Well, I've just been planning, making the first tentative steps in my new book 4 it will be. So I've had the idea approved and I've just been doing the synopsis in the opening to send to my editor to see if she likes it. But it is a bit different for me because all of my books so far have involved a mother and child, and this isn't a parenting version. This is no children involved at all, so I don't have to worry about them getting to bed and what time their dinner is. So I'm really excited about it. And other than that, I think I've just been eating too much chocolate and drinking too much prosecco, which is Christmas, I
Oh,
suppose.
join the club.
How's your Christmas, Leslie?
It was very quiet. It was, like many people's, I'm sure, a little bit different this year. But it was enjoyable. It wasn't stressy at all. Much as it's lovely having all the kids, well, they're grown-ups now, but returning every Christmas. And I love to see them, and I'm looking forward to having a proper Christmas next year. But it made a nice change, actually. It was good. And I managed to get back into a proper writing routine because I had a tricky couple of months, as you know. So that's nice, getting back into that routine. And I'm also writing my 4th novel, which, like you, it's a little bit different from the others. It's written in the 3rd person, and it's just slightly different. And I'm really enjoying it, actually. I don't know how long that will continue. I'll probably hit that tricky bit soon where I think, what am I doing? This isn't working, but I haven't got there yet. So. But what else have I been doing? Oh, I did create an author newsletter for the first time. I did a course, an online course, one of Charlotte Duckworth's online Squarespace email campaign courses. Do you know, we must get Charlotte on the pod because I
That would
think
be
she'd
good.
be a great
Yeah.
guest. And we both have read her book recently,
Yes,
haven't
I
we?
loved that book. Yeah, I'd love to get
Well,
her on to find out when it's out and
yeah, definitely.
get her on.
But I mean, I stupidly, naively thought that doing an author newsletter was a simple matter of collecting people's emails and writing a chatty email and sending it out. But apparently not.
No,
There's a lot more
no.
involved.
I think that's why I've
It's
been
like,
avoiding it all this time.
but it's good, and there are some brilliant ones out there. I mean, Claire McIntosh. I don't know if you've seen her author newsletter. I signed up for that some while ago, and it's brilliant. She really has set the bar very high. But we're all on a learning curve, aren't we? So hopefully my newsletters will become a little bit more interesting as I get more used to all the
Oh,
bells
I'm
and
sure.
whistles.
I will sign up. I'm not even on your list. I need to sign up and get involved. Yeah, I have got newsletters or some form of updating people on my 2021 list of things to do, but it's not going to be this month and probably not next month as we're now homeschooling again. So it will just be maybe December. But yeah, it's on my list.
Homeschooling. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry you've got to go through all that again. I mean, it's a really tricky time, isn't it, at the moment?
It's
Really
fine. We're
tricky.
really lucky to have them at a good age. It's just, yeah, we've had tears this morning from both of them. It's not the best start to the day and first homeschool day as well, but it's been fine. And we're going to do some painting this afternoon, so that can't go wrong, surely. But yes, it's been it's been a busy few weeks for both of us, I think, hasn't it? So but
Definitely.
on to
Yeah.
our topic for today, which is author longevity. Which is always something that I'm really interested in, because I've obviously, we just said, I've written my third book now and I'm writing my fourth. I'm on my second deal, and it's just, I still feel so new. And you talked a minute ago about a learning curve, and I still feel like I'm really, really close to the start of the learning curve. And I've got ideas for maybe another couple of books, but it's hard to visualize book 10 and book 20, and being in the industry for so long, because it is such a challenging industry and you never quite know what's around the corner. I used to think, when I got my first deal a couple of years ago, I really thought that was it. I was done. I was made. And it really is a learning curve to learn that that's not the case at all. And so I'm really interested to know what we need to do as authors to stay relevant and keep selling books, really. So yeah, it's an interesting
Yes.
one.
Yes. I mean, I suppose all we can do really is continue to um, read as much as we can. Read other stuff that's coming out in our genre. I mean, you can't possibly read them all, can you? You wouldn't have time to write. But keeping abreast of what's coming out, really. At least if you can't read the whole novel, read the premise, read some reviews, find out what's out there. And keeping sort of up to date with what's current on Netflix and the TV and crime sort of series. I mean, let's face it, we've got bugger all else to do at the moment, haven't
So
we?
true.
Watch TV and read books. So, but you're right. It is a tricky one, isn't it? Knowing how to keep coming up with fresh ideas. I've always fancied. I mean, I've got quite a few ideas for the next couple of novels, but one always hopes that that'll continue. I've always fancied possibly if the ideas do dry up, maybe trying a different genre. I don't know whether that will work or not, but that's always something to bear in mind, isn't it? I'm always a little bit envious of those writers who write series, because I think that must really help with getting a novel out each year, because
Mm.
you've already got the premise set up, the character, and you're developing their storyline and just having different situations to put them in. And particularly writers like Anne Cleeves, Val McDermott, who often have different sets of series running alongside each other. With Anne Cleeves, you've got the Vera series, haven't you, and the Shetland series, and she's got a new one now, hasn't she? Set in Devon, so she could probably pick between them. So
Yeah, it's really
that's
impressive.
yeah, I'd quite like to come up with an interesting idea for a series. I haven't so far,
Yeah,
though.
I think well, I tried. So I had, before I wrote One Step Behind, my book two that failed, in my mind would have been the start of a series, because it still had the element of a doctor. It was a completely different book, but it had the element of the doctor, and she wasn't the person who was impacted on the crime. She just kind of got dragged into this thing and ended up having to sort of almost save someone, if you like. And I thought that she
Right.
could then move around a bit and get involved, a bit like Jack Reacher, just get involved in the wrong thing, be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But interestingly, one of the bits of feedback from my editors on why it had to be completely scrapped and never to write it again was because the psychological suspense genre, the main character has to have all the emotional turmoil happening to them to really engage the reader. And because it wasn't happening to them, to that my main character, they didn't feel it, they were connecting at all. So I would love to write a series, but I think crime series work a lot better than I think a psychological suspense would. But if you can come up with an idea, I think it'd be great.
That's something to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, our guest today will certainly, hopefully, have a lot to say about author longevity, because I think he's written quite a few novels. You're going to give us the exact number in a moment, but we are going to welcome very shortly, as soon as he joins us, the fabulous Simon Kernick.
Yay! Hello and welcome, Simon Kernick, to In Suspense. Thank you so much for joining us. I will just give a little introduction for those very few people, I'm sure, who don't know you, but Simon is a #1 bestseller and one of the UK's most popular thriller writers, with huge hits including Relentless, The Last 10 Seconds, Siege, and the Bonefield series. His debut novel was released in 2002, and he's written a total of 21 books. He's been a Richard and Judy pick for their summer reads and reached #1 in the UK book charts on multiple occasions. Simon, welcome to the show. I am a big fan. I've read your book. It's up there on display.
Oh, I can see. Yeah, thank you very much, Laurie.
And you still have me as a fan, even though you almost ruined my honeymoon, in fact, because I lent my husband a copy of one of your books back in 2009, and he read it on our honeymoon, and he just ignored me for the whole time because it was so good. So,
yeah. Well, I hope you're still married.
Yeah, we are in fact still married. Yes.
Oh no, it wasn't too bad then.
So yes, that was my little fangirl Simon moment. So would you like to start by telling us a little bit about Kill a Stranger, because it was a huge page turner for me, and like I said, I really enjoyed it. It was absolutely thrilling. So do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, it's a thriller set over 24 hours, and it starts with one of our central protagonists, Matt, arriving home from a night out in London to find his pregnant fiancée, not in bed where he expects her to be, but in her place, a dead woman who he's never seen before. And a dead woman, excuse me, in her hand has a mobile phone. And as Matt stands there kind of trying to come to terms with this horrific scene, the phone rings, and he finds out that his fiancée, Kate, has been kidnapped. And if he wants to get her back, he is going to have to follow some instructions, which includes committing murder, something that for a failed ex-actor, stroke hotelier that he is going to be, how is he going to do it? And so we follow Matt over 24 hours, and we have 3 different protagonists as well: Matt, Kate, the fiance, and also Kate's father, Sir Hugh Roper, a sort of villainous Philip Green-like figure. And the story goes between the 3 protagonists, but basically we have 24 hours of a fairly sort of relentless pace with plenty of twists and turns, and we're never quite sure as we go through the book who of the 3 is actually really telling the truth, and they've all got kind of secrets that sort of come out in the book. But it's if you like my books, I think you'll really like this one. I think it's one of the best actually, but a complete standalone. The characters aren't coming back, and I actually I really enjoyed writing it actually. So hopefully everyone will enjoy reading it.
Oh, I certainly enjoyed reading it. I mean, I didn't think I was going to have time to start reading it, but I thought on Sunday night, I thought, well, at least I can read the opening chapters, because I knew Laurie had read it, and I thought, well, at least I'll have read the opening chapters. And 3.5 hours later, it's the definition of a page turner. It's really, really good. So I recommend everybody get it, because it's fabulous.
Oh, thank you very much, Leslie. I really
it's actually the first one of yours I've written. So now I've got quite a lot to go back and read, haven't I?
Yeah, plenty. What are you waiting for?
As you know, Simon, our topic for today is author longevity. And, having written so many novels and many, all of them bestsellers, you are the perfect person really to talk to about this. So I was wondering what you think is the key to your continued success.
You know what? It's a very, very good question. It's not as easy to answer as I'd like. I think it's a combination of a number of things. I mean, on the one hand, there is an element of luck. I like to think I write good books, but my first book, which I thought was one of my best, The Business of Dying, my debut novel, I mean, didn't really do that well at all. And then because there's a lot of competition in the market, and actually I was going quite steady and actually going probably slightly down in terms of numbers up until Relentless, which is my Richard and Judy pick. But obviously, if I hadn't got the Richard and Judy pick, it's tough to know whether I would have made it or not. So there's always an element of luck. I also think you've got to write regularly. I mean, you have to produce, I think, at minimum, and probably a maximum too, but a minimum a book a year. And you've always got to be a person who delivers when they say they're going to deliver. If you're contracted to deliver on March the 31st of a certain year, then, don't go and deliver in July, because it's not going to, everyone's going to, and I know that sounds like common sense, but it is hard it's very hard if a book is not going very well to get it done. But I think you've got to kind of also treat it very much as a job. I get up in the morning and I'll do a chunk of work in the morning and I'll do a chunk of work in the afternoon, and I'll do that Monday to Friday. If I'm falling behind and it looks like it is going to be a tight delivery, then I'll do some on Saturday and I'll do some on Sunday as well. And so you've got to be prepared to not wait for inspiration, but almost act like a journalist, acting on deadlines constantly. If I haven't done 2,000 words in a day, I'm a bit peeved with myself. I'm not going to beat myself up about it, but I try to then do 2,000 the next day. I try to kind of keep that momentum going. So I think that's very, very important. And also you kind of want to run a sort of fine balance between writing books that are different to what's come before, in terms of, so you're not getting predictable, but are also similar insofar as someone who enjoys your books isn't going to suddenly go, oh my goodness me, he's gone completely off tangent. So it's you've got to sort of, I don't know, you just got to kind of keep reinventing the genre every time, or keep reinventing your work, but keeping it your work. So I think but again, I suppose the secret is try to be objective about your own writing. I mean, I've been writing my 22nd book over the last few months, and I realized after a couple of months, it's not working. It's just not working. It's just not been happening. It's not going to work. It's going to be predictable. People that have read my books before will say, no, I could guess that ending. And so I've had to sort of completely restructure the whole thing. And I think you have to have the ability to see where you're going wrong and to see where you're going right. And I think if you can manage that, and if you are prepared and strong enough to sort of say, right, this 2 months worth of work is unfortunately going to have to go in the bin. I put it down to experience, but I dredge out what I can of it. But I'm going to turn the story around, and I feel that I can put that out there, and it will be unpredictable. If you can do that kind of stuff and be self-critical within reason, then I think, that's another key to it. So it's a combination of all those things, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great answer. No,
yeah, I'm making notes. Is it harder now to come up with the ideas than it was at first, do you find? Now that you've written so many books, do you worry that one idea might be too similar to another one you've already written?
Yes. I mean, it is harder. I mean, yes to both questions. I mean, yes, it is. It gets harder and harder. I think you kind of start off with a store of really good ideas, and then as time goes through, you come up with new ones. But at a certain point, it does become quite difficult. And so I used to normally have sort of 2 or 3 ideas for a new book by the time I'd finished the previous one. Now I've got 1, but I'm always, I'm not struggling, but I've got to kind of concentrate. As soon as I finish a book, I've got to be thinking about the next one, how I'm going to kind of work it. So it's harder to come up with the ideas, yes. And there is a real issue of having ideas that are too similar to the last one and yourself. So I think the hardest part is not so much the overall idea of the book, although, that is quite hard, but what, almost where the scenes that you write. So if you, have individual scenes within the book, I've sometimes found I'll be writing a scene and I think, well, actually, this is similar to something I've written before. And then I think about it, and then I think, oh my God, yeah, 12 years ago in Target or Deadline, I wrote something very similar. Now, you can kind of get away with it to a degree, but you can't do it very much. And it can't be too similar, because obviously the way your brain works, or the way my brain works, I would probably write that and think it was completely new. And probably almost not quite word for word, but the whole same scene, and not realize that I did it 12 years ago until I kind of think about it. So that's the really hard part, is to keep the scenes fresh and to keep a sense of unpredictability about the work. I mean, that's a really difficult one, because as I just mentioned with the book I've just been writing, I could see it becoming more and more predictable. But obviously you keep on going with it, because I spend weeks and weeks and weeks trying to sort of plot it all out, and then suddenly you can't believe that it's not going to be as good as you think it is. But then suddenly it isn't. So yeah, that's hard. And I've had to really spend a good couple of months working out how to tell the story differently. And I think I've got it now, and I'm back on the draft, and things look like they're okay. But it's tiring work, and I'm not looking forward to, the next, come up with the next idea. I've got a rough one, but I mean, it gets tough. This has been quite exhausting, but obviously it's been exhausting in many other ways, because, we've had COVID, and there's, everyone's a bit stressed. It's kind of a bit depressing. The work's kind of hard to sort of motivate yourself in a way. And also I've had a major operation on my foot in July, and a tendon, so I can't walk very much. So it's kind of, the combination of everything just made it quite difficult. So I'm pretty knackered at the moment. But it's harder. It is harder. It's genuinely harder to get it. And I think I'd be very surprised if any writer says to you after 21 books, they just keep flying at me.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it doesn't get any easier. Has the process of writing changed at all for you over the years? I was wondering, because I read somewhere, I think it was in an interview you did for January magazine, and you said there that the twists often come to you, excuse me, as you're writing. So you're kind of plotting as you go almost, or have you changed now? You mentioned just now that you spend a lot of time plotting out a novel. I was just wondering how your process has changed over the years, or if it has changed.
No, it's changed pretty dramatically, actually. I started, when I think that interview in January magazine would have been almost certainly early 2000, 2003, 2004, 5, something like that. It probably wouldn't have been later than that. So yes, it's changed dramatically. What happened was, I did used to, when I first started out, I would come up with a kind of very basic plot, maybe a page long, and then work with that. And that worked right up until my fifth book. And I wrote my fifth book and kind of meandered on through it, sort of, coming up with stuff as I went along. And I could tell it was dross. I could tell it was I really could, all the way through, but I somehow kind of pushed it to the back of my, I'll make it work. And I remember handing it in completed and thinking, this isn't good. My editor at the time, who was my editor for many, many of my books, said, this is awful. This book just doesn't work. And I actually, luckily, had an idea that, funny enough, I got from a nightmare, which was for Relentless. And I said, well, I can write this book. I've got this idea, and I can write this in 3 months if I need to. And they do. You need to. So get going. But the point is, I knew then, from beginning of Relentless, I just couldn't afford to kind of meander anymore. I had to structure. So I literally spent a week or 2 weeks writing a really, really detailed chapter by chapter structure and work to that. Now I've done that ever since. I get the idea, sort of meander around thinking about it a lot, walking around, and then I start to just structure it up. So then I'll write a full chapter by chapter structure. Now what does happen though is it doesn't always work. Like obviously the book I'm writing at the moment, it looks great when it's 10,000 words in that kind of format, but then because you haven't got all the other 90,000 words in there where you can see whether it's a bit boring or not, it's not foolproof. So you still do get twists coming. And Kill a Stranger the twist at the end, and the last two or three twists in the book, as you remember, there were quite a few, I came up with them as I was writing them. But I've still got to keep the structure. So yeah, I mean, you kind of improvise, but I operate to a structure now. And so obviously when I had the problem with the book I'm writing now, I then went back and then wrote a completely different structure, which I only really actually finished yesterday. So, you know, I can't afford now, particularly with, you know, when you're kind of doing twists and turns and, you know, doing it over a short space of time. I can't afford to not plan it out in quite a lot of detail. So I know exactly how my book now I'm writing ends now. I know exactly how it builds up to it. I know all the kind of twists. A couple of twists will come back in again, but no, I'm largely, and I think that's the only way I can do it. Although it is boring.
I'm sure it's not. I think I'm right in saying, Simon, that you've just moved publishers, I believe.
I have.
Yeah, I wondered if you think it's important for authors to try and stay with the same publisher for a certain period of time, if they can, or if it helps their career to sort of jump around a bit, like whether you found it, whether you think it makes a difference.
It's a good question. I would say actually, like anything really, like whether it's any job, it's probably better to stay put with one organization for, you know, a reasonably significant amount of time, because I think if you flit from one to another, then people are going to probably ask, like they would in any job, why do you not settle down? Why do you only do one book here or two books here and then you're off again? And people will presumably take the pessimistic view that either A, you're greedy, or B, you're difficult to work with, or C, you're just not selling. And so yeah, I mean, you know, within reason, but I'm talking about people that flip, you know, after every book. I think in general, I was with Penguin Random House, or, you know, I was a Transworld before, but part of the same group, and with the same editor for my first, oh my goodness me, 20 books, I guess. So, and that worked very, very well for me. But I'm the same with an agent. I mean, my agent I've been with right since day one when they pulled me out of Slush Pile. I still deal specifically with the people that pulled me off the Slush Pile 20 years ago. So, and I prefer that because it gives an element of stability. But I also think sometimes you do need to kind of freshen up and maybe take a fresh outlook, and maybe you've worked together for so long, just again, as you would in any job, where a change is as good as the rest, really. And I think that's one of the reasons, or the central reason, really, that I went to Headline. And obviously Killer Stranger is my first book with them. But yeah, I wouldn't advise, you know, to any would-be writers flitting, you know, go with, if you're happy in general with how your editor and how the publisher is, I'd always just stick with them. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Definitely. I agree with that, definitely. I you know, what you were saying earlier about how hard work it is, you know, to write novels. I was just thinking, you know, it takes a tremendous amount of self-discipline and hard graft to write just one novel, let alone the number that you've written over the years. And I'm interested in how much you actually enjoy writing, because I've heard some writers say that they don't actually enjoy the process of writing. They like it, they enjoy it after they've done it. So once they've got their word count done for the day, they feel happy, they feel fulfilled. Whereas others, like me actually, I really enjoy that sitting down and poring over it and wondering what I'm going to write next, and that whole, you know, immersing myself in the process. I was wondering how you feel about the, you know, the balance between being compelled to write something and actually really enjoying it and wanting to sit down every day and write it.
I think I'm probably more on the compelled side rather than the enjoying side. I enjoy having the idea and kind of working on the idea sort of pre actual sitting down and writing it. I quite enjoy the planning because basically when you do a chapter by chapter structure, I find that you kind of you don't have to bother with all the boring parts like description or anything like that. You can just sort of say, this is what's going to happen, then this is going to happen, and I enjoy that part because it's you can see the book kind of coming together in your head, but you're not just sort of sitting there, writing a mundane paragraph. That's, so I get all the good bits. The actual writing process, I wouldn't say I hate it. But I really don't enjoy it very much. I think I used to enjoy it slightly more, although I don't think I've ever. I always remember reading an interview with Ray Bradbury, the very famous sci-fi author, and he used to say, I used to love waking up in the morning because I just couldn't wait to get to my desk. The kind of ideas are ready for me and just get to work. And I thought, no, I'm jealous because that's not me at all. But if I didn't do it, then I would be at a loss as well. I mean, I quite like taking time off between books, but I can't completely switch off from it. I mean, when I've finished a book and when I've handed it in, I always think, I'm not going to think about it for months. The first thing I do is I'm thinking on the next idea, and it then moves on to that. So I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction out of it as well. Not just every day when I do, but once when it really comes together. So the plotting and planning I love. The actual writing part, particularly the first draft, I massively dislike. The editing part where I'm kind of polishing it all up and just making it look good, I enjoy that part. Because that I can see, it's like doing the puzzle and you've got rid of all the kind of mundane stuff and you're actually just tweaking it all and think, it's all. And so you've got that kind of feeling of being on the home straight, and I enjoy that. So it's
it's a tricky one, isn't it? I know what you mean there, and I although I enjoy it, there are times when I absolutely I would do anything other than sit down at my desk. I would sort of reorganize my knicker drawer just to not go and sit at my desk. But I actually really like the first draft process, but it's usually when I hit about the sort of 30,000 word sort of, and I think, oh God, no, is this a goer, or have I got to start again? But I think if I don't write, I like you said, if you can't write, I mean, the last couple of months I have various other demands on my time, and I actually felt, even though I wanted to do those things, I actually felt quite resentful that I couldn't write, and it really made me quite depressed that I couldn't get into my normal writing routine. How about you, Laurie? Do you feel compelled to write?
So I think I sit between the two of you, and it's sort of an enjoyable compulsion, because I think I do get up really early and I do love coming down to my desk and writing, but I am also really strict on myself with my word count every day, and put a lot of pressure on myself. So I think there are days where I don't want to necessarily write, but because I'm so strict, I do. And I think that's when it becomes more compulsion than enjoyment. But yeah, for the most part, I think I would. And I think, like you two, it doesn't really matter whether you enjoy it or not, because what else would we do? Because I think there is something inside us that drives us to write, whether it's on a day-to-day enjoyment level or not. It's something we have to do. So yeah,
exactly. Simon, would you ever consider, or have you ever considered writing in a different genre? Are there any sort of writing ambitions that you've still got that or are you wedded to the thriller genre?
No, I'm not wedded to the thriller genre. In fact, when I was a kid and really up into my 20s, the kind of stories I wrote were always fantasy. So kind of swords and sorcery style, kind of like Conan the Barbarian meets Lord of the Rings meets, whatever. And I loved writing those. Those are always my first love. I used to read a lot of fantasy as well. I don't do that so much. I prefer to read crime, but I've often thought eventually I would like to write a fantasy series, but it's finding the time. I mean, you know what it's like. It's hard enough, as you said yourself, Leslie. I mean, you get demands on your time. It's hard enough being able to write a book a year, and it's very, very difficult to kind of stop doing that when that's what you paid for, and that's what your readers expect. But yeah, I kind of do hanker over writing a fantasy novel, but I have been hankering over for 20 years and I've done about it. So I could well be hankering over for another 20 years. I don't know, but I do. Yeah, I do have this kind of dream of maybe taking a year out from writing crime and then just see what I can come up with on fantasy. I think, as Lauren pointed out, I mean, you don't want to you're always thinking, you always work, you're always there, you're always working, you've always got, you can't not do it. So, I'd be, I'd want to be doing something if I took a year out, right? And it'd be writing something else. But yes.
Right, well, I look forward to that.
You might be looking forward a long, long time.
And what have you been reading over summer? We like to pick out brains of our guests and find out what they've been enjoying book-wise over Christmas. Have you been reading anything good at the moment?
Well, I've been reading a succession of thrillers. I'm stuck on the thriller genre. I'm currently reading a Chris Carter book, one of his Robert Hunter books called An Evil Mind, which is pretty grim reading because it's quite gory and unpleasant in many ways, but they are real page turners. And I just really fancied a page turner. I had been reading another thriller, which I won't name because it was very, very, very unthrilling, and I had to give up.
Oh no!
Well, I think I got 250 pages in actually. This is just too bad. I just cannot waste any more time on it. So that was, So I've been reading Chris Carter. I found that very, very interesting and very enjoyable. I also read, before that, I read Rosamund Lupton's 3 Hours.
Yes.
Yeah, which I enjoyed. I really enjoyed. It was interesting because it was written in a different way than I would have tackled the same subject, which obviously, you would expect. But very, very well written and very tense and... it was a very well put together thriller. So that was that one. So I read 3 on the bounce, basically. I've read, but I'm nearly finished on the Chris Carter. I often read travel books as well, but because I can't travel at the moment, I'm sort of I don't want to read
it.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't want to read about stuff I literally cannot do at the moment, and have someone else tell me how fantastic it is to go like walking through the Himalayas or whatever when I'm stuck here with a bad foot, So I kind of So I'm a bit back with thriller. So when I finish Chris Carter, I've got a reading list. I've got actually the new T.M. Logan thriller that's out this year.
So have I.
It's called, I'm just looking look over your shoulder. Look, it's called Trust Me.
I'm jealous. Look at you both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just read that as well. It's fantastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Good.
Well, I'll
good.
expect mine
really
then,
good.
will I, through the door?
Yeah. You should. I've been finding out what's gone wrong. Maybe the postman's nicked it.
Oh yeah, I don't get the same number of books through, I think.
But I'll probably read that one next because I really enjoyed The Holiday. I haven't read anything else by him, but I really enjoyed The Holiday. So I thought that would be good. So yes, very much a thriller. To answer your question, Laurie, very much a thriller kind of Christmas for me, book-wise.
What about you, Leslie? What have you been reading?
Well, I raced through Trust Me. That was good. I've also read a book. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Is it J.P. Pomare or Pomare?
Oh, okay.
I think he's an I think he was born in New Zealand, but he lives in Australia now. In the Clearing. That's really, really good.
Is that a scarecrow or a little girl?
Sorry?
Oh, but is that a scarecrow or a little girl?
No, it's a little girl with a big black smudge across her, but it does look a bit like her. Yeah, it's quite a sinister book, actually. Really, really good. Right, and I've just started. This is the latest Robert Goddard. I think it's due out. I think it might be due out in April or March. No, March 18th.
I like the cover.
It's called The Fine Art of Invisible Detection. Oh. And although Robert Goddard's written lots of crime novels, hasn't he? But this is a kind of a new departure for him, and it's got
is it kind of more of a cozy crime kind of?
No, it's not really a cozy crime. It's shall I just read you the blurb because it's really interesting. It takes place in Tokyo, Japan, and in London. Umiko Wada does not crave excitement. Widowed, young, and living alone, she works as a secretary for a private detective. Her life is satisfyingly uncomplicated, running smoothly on office routine and domestic solitude, but all that changes when her boss takes on a new case, a case surrounded by shadows of the past, a case that requires Wada to leave Tokyo and travel to London. And then there's another guy, Nick Miller, never knew his father and was always told he hadn't missed much. But when an old friend of his late mother says there are things that Nick really needs to know about his parents, he can't ignore it. Neither Wada nor Nick realise that from this moment on their fates will be intertwined. And I say I've only just started it, but it's really good. So
Yeah, I really like the cover.
Yeah,
it's great.
Cover, yeah.
It's great. Yeah. What about you, Laurie? What are you reading?
So what I've got for Christmas from myself, True Story, which I really enjoyed, by Kate Reed Petty, which was really, really differently written to anything I've read before. So that was really interesting. And I don't know if you can see it. I printed off the cover. It's Barbara Copplethwaite's new one, and it's The Girl in the Missing Post. That was a really enjoyable thriller. And at the moment, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm reading Can You See Me Now by Trisha
Sacklecker. Yes.
Thank you, Leslie, for jumping in then. So yeah,
I probably didn't pronounce it right, but I knew who you meant.
Yeah. Just from Trisha. We're that good friends. We can be just Trisha. So yeah, really some really good thrillers as well. I do jump around. I don't stick in thrillers completely, because I think sometimes you can get a bit it becomes a bit overwhelming just reading one after the other, but I have had a good run of them actually, so it'd be nice. But 3 hours, interestingly, is my next one. I've heard so many good things about that, so I'm really
definitely worth. Yeah, it's definitely worth a read. It's a good book. It's a very good book.
Yeah, good.
Now then, Simon, this is the time of the show when we usually ask a fun question. And in your novels, you tend to throw your characters into very sort of stressful, like extreme situations. And so we were wondering, what's the craziest period of time or 24 hours that that's ever happened to you?
Well, to answer that question, I would say it wasn't good fun by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it was very, I mean, I was as a 16-year-old, I was thrown into one of those kind of very stressful situations when I was abducted with 2 friends and beaten very badly.
Oh.
Yeah, I know it doesn't sound like I know, but it's a matter of a public record, so it's fine. And it was the craziest time. I was hitchhiking with 2 friends. I won't go into the whole detail of it, but I was hitchhiking with 2 friends between Marlow and Henley, where I grew up, and we were picked up by a bunch of older guys, sort of squashed into a car, and they drove us into Henley. And I thought they were going to drop us off, and they didn't. We were sort of stuck in the back of this 2-door Ford Escort, and they like battered us around a bit and drove us into the woods nearby, out, and drove us in. And then, so it was like really, I mean, it was intensely crazy. And we were kind of like, stripped naked, beaten, and one of my friends managed to escape, and then we were kind of let go. And me and my friend had a run about 6 or 7 miles, I think, in darkness, in the middle of summer, luckily. And when we went and went to my girlfriend's house, which is where we come from, and rather than knock on the door, we hid in the garage and kind of wrapped ourselves up in some blankets. It was old rugs. And then eventually we couldn't sleep; it was too damn cold. And we knocked on the door, and we were kind of wrapped in an old rug. And my girlfriend's mum answered and said, "Oh my God, the police have been looking for your bodies and looking at because yeah." So it's really and then I then had to go into get some clothes on, and I had to get and I had to go to the police station. There was a question about it for hours, and then it kind of made the national newspapers. Mainly because of the naked angle, I think, with the sun. And it was it was a big old do back in the early 80s, 1983.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. And then I went on holiday for the first time without my family 3 days later.
Oh gosh.
No wonder you started writing thrillers.
Well, it's very useful because if I laugh about it now, but my God, at the time it was terrifying. Because they did tell us they were going to kill us as well. And one of them was actually supposedly reaching for a shotgun under the...
Oh, my God.
Under the seat of the car. But I don't think he was. I think he was there to scare us because we were only young kids and they were much older. And they did catch him, actually. But it turned out to be our word against theirs. And they never found a stolen car they were in. It made the... Yeah, I've talked about it in the newspapers before. But yes, that was the craziest 24 hours.
Wow.
But it was so surreal, as then becomes completely, you don't really dwell on it afterwards.
No.
So, I mean, obviously it's always there, but it was about, it's so mad that you kind of just think, oh, that just happened, and then you kind of go off and do something completely different. But Yeah, it was pretty grisly, but yeah, don't look too worried, Ezzy. It's fine. It was 38 years ago now, so I
I
can,
do. I do. You know, whenever I watch something on the telly that's got a violent scene, my husband's always laughing at me because it's like I feel it viscerally, and I'm like, no, oh. I get terribly emotionally.
when I put my characters into those kind of like terrifying situations, I can you never forget how you feel when you think you're about to die, and I can I just could draw straight on that. So in that respect, it's kind of done me a favor, but it's a favor I probably wouldn't have asked for. I must admit, but
I had a bit of a crazy time. It was kind of, well, it wasn't at all similar to that, but it did sort of involve a mini abduction. I was staying in Gozo, I'm sure you know, a small island near Malta, and this was, I think it was circa 1986, and it was way before Gozo had become touristy. I mean, it's not terribly touristy now, but it hardly had any tourist infrastructure there at all at that time. And there wasn't much entertainment on the island. There were some restaurants and things, but I think we as the tourists were the entertainment, because most people at that stage only went to Gozo for a day trip, and we stayed there for 2 weeks. And we ended up in some tiny little restaurant, and it was like being in someone's living room, and there was a fridge there with a dead pigeon in it. It was really surreal. People were gathering round to watch us eat. It was quite unnerving. And the proprietor of this restaurant he'd been sort of leching over me all evening. It was quite horrible. And anyway, we'd got a hire car, and I was the designated driver, so I was driving, and it wouldn't start. And I don't know quite what happened. The others were drunk. The rest of my party, they'd had too much to drink. So I was the only one who was sort of relatively, well, I was sober. I probably just had one glass of wine. And so I found myself at one point in the passenger seat, and this big hairy gazetan restaurateur got into the driver's seat and was trying to help us start the car. And he started it, and he just drove off with me up a hill, drove off with me. And then he parked, and he assaulted me, I guess. I mean, he didn't rape me or anything like that, but he tried it on basically, and did things I didn't want him to do. And if that happened now, I'd scream and shout and I'd fight. But I remember I was very young, and I was just completely frozen with fear. I thought, oh my God, this is it. I'm gonna be raped. I'm gonna be murdered. And meantime, the rest of my party were running up the hill to come and save me. And I mean, I don't really know what happened then. It all ended up, someone punched him, and then we got back in the car. We drove back to our rental villa. And we were terrified because we got it into our heads, I don't know why, that he was part of the Gazetan Mafia. I don't know whether that was just one of my members of the party being a bit drunk and getting a bit, over the top. I don't know, but we just spent a horrible night sort of panicking that he was going to come and get us because we'd punched him, and it was awful. So yeah, I can see that.
It's horrendous, and it is a very difficult way, especially when you are young. You don't know what to do, and often you are almost frozen with kind of fear. That's a fact that can happen, and it's terrible. I mean, it's awful. Yeah, it's an awful story.
It's interesting though that does happen, because you always think you would fight back, and that you would. But I was paralysed with fear.
Well, I think is unless someone actually literally attacks you like with fists or whatever, a lot of the time, you don't really do anything. Even then, I mean, you don't do it. I think you only actually fight back instinctively if it's an uncontrolled attack on you. If it's a controlled attack on you, then it's very, very difficult, because the threat is always of more. But I think if someone just runs out of nowhere and attacks you, then you would fight back.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I mean, it's terrifying, really, when you think about it like that. But we both survived it. That's the most important thing.
What about you, Laurie? Have you had anything horrible happen?
Clearly, I have just had a very sheltered, safe little life, because I've got no story like that.
That's good.
I was just going to mention this time when I had to race across London to get a package somewhere and all the tubes were shut, and I had to then get a bus, and then that wasn't working and it broke down and all that kind of thing. But it's clearly the most boring story and pointless story now, so I won't go into it. We'll jump straight into your quick fire round, Simon. So we're going to ask you some very quick questions, and you just have to say the first thing that comes into your head. Is that all right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so the first one is, are you relaxed on the beach or adrenaline junkie holiday type?
Adrenaline junkie holiday type.
Car chase or gunfight?
Gunfight.
Paper and pen or laptop?
Laptop.
Word or Scrivener?
Word.
Wine or beer?
That's a hard one. I'll go wine if I had to.
Savoury or sweet?
Savoury.
Quiet night in or noisy pub?
Quiet night in these days.
When you, not there's any choice at the moment. When you're writing, is it music or silence?
Music.
Cat or dog?
Dog.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning.
What's your favourite show to watch on TV?
Oh, at the moment, The Shield.
Good. All right, that's it. Well done. You survived your
Ah.
fire round.
Oh.
You never asked coffee or tea?
Oh, I didn't. No, I didn't, because I try and change them up every
So
time I try
boring,
and adapt
isn't
them. So I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, you had
coffee.
your coffee there, so I thought coffee.
Yeah. But I always have a cup of tea first thing in the morning, so it's quite
Oh.
a difficult one. I would like to have first thing in the morning cup of tea, but it would be coffee anyway.
Oh,
You
thank
didn't
you.
ask, I told you anyway.
Thank you so much, Simon, for coming on the show. And you've been a really brilliant and interesting guest to kick off our second series of In Suspense. And Kill a Stranger, everybody, go out and buy it, because it really is the definition of a page turner. It's absolutely fabulous. It had me hooked. I read the whole thing in one sitting, having only intended to read a couple of chapters. So there you go. But no, it's been great having you on. You've been really great. And
Thank you for having me.
we are hopefully going to we are going to have another guest on our next show in 2 weeks' time. We're not going to tell you too much about that person, are we, Laurie? Because we always, and this is our little cheesy ending, Simon, so bear with us. We are going to keep you in suspense. We never synchronise it. We're going to have to. We just can't. We're going to have to practice and do counting, but no. But
it worked quite well like that.
Well, yeah, we're very cheesy, but you know, people, listeners, viewers, however you watch us, if you do want to catch up on series 1, then check out our YouTube channel, and this is also available as a podcast on, I think, various podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, all the usual.
Wow.
What was that?
We're on Amazon Music now as well.
So, Amazon Music. Well, there you
go.
Not
singing.
No, definitely not singing. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks, Simon. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.